Right, I think we can proceed. Okay, so I would like to welcome you all to this event that we will have with Welcome Fund. So I know it's a bit late in the evening, but I hope that you guys will bear with us. So right now it is 9 o'clock in the morning, I suppose, over there, right, Viv? Okay, so I would like to say thank you to Dr. Vivian Goosens and Dr. Peter Gilroy as well for having us because you guys want to talk about Welcome Fund. You guys want to brief us what Welcome Fund is and then how we can apply for this Welcome Fund. So a little bit background for Dr. Peter Gilroy. He is actually taking care of humanity and social science at Wellcome Fund. And for Dr. Vivian Goosens, she's actually taking care of the traditional science, more like biochemistry, blood chemistry, and all that. So I guess that's all that I want to say. If let's say you guys have any questions at all, you can wait until the end of the session and then you can open your mic and then you can ask your question away. But then if you don't want to do that, you want to put it in the chat box, you can do that as well. And then I will read them for Vivian and Peter. Right. So over to you, Viv.
Great, thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to share my slides and hopefully look like a professional while I do that. I wanted to say, oh, where is the, I'm nearly a professional. Where is the button? There it is. There we go. Now I look like a professional. Is that correct? You've seen the big screen. That's wonderful. I wanted to first of all say thank you very much for inviting us. It's an honor to be here this morning. But I also wanted to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and Ramadan Mubarak. I'm aware it's the end of the day for a lot of you, and I do hope that this is going to be an inspiring and useful conversation and discussion for you. My name is Vivian Goossens, or Viv Goossens, and I'm joined by my colleague Peter Kilroy, and together we both work at the Wellcome Trust in London. Now, I wanted to first of all introduce who and what the Wellcome Trust is. We are a global charitable foundation. We're based in Euston Road in central London, but we have global reach. We are financially independent, we are politically independent, and we don't have shareholders or any political alliances. This means that we have a very unique place in the funding landscape. As well as supporting research, we also build global partnerships and advocacy campaigns, and we work with people and organizations using research to improve health. And our vision is a healthier future for everyone. And we do this through our mission, which is to support science to solve urgent health challenges facing everyone. The way our organization is kind of built is we've got various modes of action, which we internally refer to as discovery and solutions. But underscoring everything we do really is equity. So Wellcome considers equity not just with regards with who and what we fund, but also who's impacted by what we fund, how the research is performed, and how that research is shared. Now, I sit, and so does Peter, we sit in the discovery research side of the organization. And when we talk about discovery, we talk about that in a very broad sense. So Wellcome is better placed than most organizations to fund exploratory research. So things that are open-ended, that generate knowledge, that has potential, but not immediately guaranteed to have impact on health in the future. Whereas our solution team is very much focused on urgent health challenges and want solutions immediately. So they have experience and expertise, and what they're aiming to do is accelerate specific challenges in the areas where they have this experience and expertise. And they've chosen three focuses, which is climate and health, infectious disease, and mental health. And within those programs, they've got various sub-programs and priorities. These programs often have targeted calls or specific activities. And if you're interested in those, I would highly recommend at the end of this presentation, we have a slide where you can join our newsletter and find out more. But today's talk is really focused on the discovery side of things. And this is where our what we call open mode sits. So this is where people come to us with their ideas, and then we somehow manage to pick we pick from this exceptional pool of ideas and we fund those researchers. So that's kind of, I think, what you guys are hoping to do is come to us with your ideas. So what is our ambition for discovery research? And that is, we really want to fund breakthrough research that is field opening. It crosses a breadth of disciplines and it brings fields and perspectives together. At the center of everything that we do really is the people. So who's doing the research and who's benefiting from this research? So we want to build careers. We want to give researchers time and freedom to be truly curious. And we want researchers to work together and really push the boundaries and answer big questions. And finally, by supporting these strong ecosystems, these research ecosystems, we want to also address bottlenecks. So really support tools and technologies that develop discovery-based research, but also we want to create environments that are really supportive to researchers so that they can be the best they can. And on this, I'm going to hand over to Peter, who's going to go into more about really what discovery is. So Peter, please do let me know if I need to change the slides.
Thanks, Viv. So yes, I'm going to just say a little bit more about how we understand discovery research. And this is really research across fields and disciplines that generates new knowledge with the potential to transform life, health, and well-being. And there's a couple of points to stress here. One is that we work across fields and disciplines. So we say life, health, and well-being mainly because we fund across the life sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. So it's a very broad spectrum of what we fund. And the second point to stress is that this is about knowledge generation. So we're not, I mean, Viv has already mentioned this already, but we're not immediately focused on the health or social impacts of this research, although it may have impacts further down the line. And one point to really stress here is that there is no requirement within the discovery research stream to focus on those solutions areas that Viv has mentioned in mental health, climate and health, and infectious disease. So it's very broad. It covers a very wide spectrum of areas, everything from fundamental biological processes through to clinical and population-based approaches, the development of methodologies, conceptual frameworks, tools and techniques, the needs and values of priorities of people who are affected by disease or health inequalities, and the wider social, cultural, and other contexts of health. So extremely broad. What we don't fund is research that is exclusively translational or applied, but we do fund research that has the potential to be translated or applied. And that's the point I'm going to move on to now, if I could get the next slide. So what we don't want to give the impression is that discovery research is entirely abstract or lab-based activity. We're focused on the idea that health is centered on human beings, and that covers a lot of areas that would traditionally have been seen as sitting in a more translational or applied context. And my colleague Sophie Hawksworth has written a piece for LinkedIn to explain how we understand the breadth of discovery in this context. And that could include anything from looking at the mechanisms underlying effective interventions. So we don't fund full-scale interventions per se, but we are interested in what makes them work or not. We're interested in research in hospital settings or in clinical settings, research that's looking at the social and cultural context of health policy, and that's quite a big growing area. Research looking at the tools or technologies that might enable discovery research in this space, or clinical applications of research. Feasibility or pilot work around interventions, or co-production or more engaged models of research that work with communities or patient groups or others. So it is a wide spectrum. It's always worth having a look at that article and others on our website just to get a sense of the breadth of this research. So if we could just get the next slide, thanks. So in our open mode funding scheme, we have three main awards. We try to simplify this down to three different stages of researchers' careers. So we have the early career awards, and this is for researchers that are in the process of developing their research identity. So this is effectively a postdoc. And for that, we will cover the applicant's salary and up to 400,000 British pounds for research expenses. And that can be up to 5 years in duration, which is quite long, but it doesn't have to be that. And you can define that as appropriate for your field. We have career development awards, which are for researchers who are mid-career and who are starting to develop their international standing as researchers. And for that, we will pay the principal investigator's salary and any resources they need to develop this program of work. We don't set a cap on the size of these awards financially, and that will depend on the needs of the particular project, and that can be funded for up to 8 years, which again is long, but there's the opportunity to shorten that if you wish. And finally, we have the Discovery Awards, and this is for established researchers and teams. So this is the only award in which you can have co-applicants applying as part of these awards. They can be investigator-led or they can be team-led, depending on what you want to do with these awards. And they can be from working across one discipline or working across multiple disciplines, depending on what you're interested in doing. Like the Career Development Awards, these are open-ended in terms of the resources that you're looking for, and they can be for up to 8 years. So if we could just get the next slide, thanks. So who do we fund? Well, we fund individuals at all career stages and then teams of researchers for those Discovery Awards. They're open to lead applicants based in the UK, the Republic of Ireland, and any country listed on the OECD list of low and middle income countries, although that's excluding China and India. The co-applicants then on the Discovery Awards can be based anywhere in the world, and applicants who want to develop these projects do not need to partner with researchers in the UK or Ireland or any other country. They can be based anywhere they wish. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Viv, who's going to look at some examples of projects we funded, just to give you a flavor of the details.
Yeah, thank you. So here I've shown a few examples of our awards based in various locations. The first one is an early career award, which is by Alexander Klocher, and they're thinking about how malaria control is linked to human health and environmental limits, asking how they can fight malaria without actually damaging the environment. And then there's a Career Development Award example here by Edna Matau, and they're examining how the health system governance impacts antibiotic resistance. And they're looking at Kenya and Vietnam and helping to understand what policies really show the spread of drug, or really slow the spread of drug-resistant infections. Then I've got a couple of examples of various Discovery Awards. Now, Discovery Awards can be individuals as well as teams. The first two Discovery Awards that I've got here are two that are based in researchers that are led by researchers in Cambodia, and they focus on infectious diseases. And in particular, the first one is focused on chikungunya infection, trying to assess how multiple diseases spread within communities in the context of chikungunya. Then there is a Discovery Award that is led by, have I jumped one? Yeah, yeah. Then there's another one that is led by Catherine Thwaites, the third one, and this is led by someone based in Oxford. However, what's really strong about this team is that there's a number of co-investigators based in Accra in Vietnam, and this project uses clinical data as well as artificial intelligence to identify the different types of pneumonia in Vietnamese patients, leading ultimately to faster diagnostics and more targeted treatment. So kind of what I wanted to show here is that the breadth of what we can cover can range from policy impacting to AI technologies to all sorts of things. And I'm going to hand it back over to Peter to go into the details of the assessment.
Thanks, Viv. So for each of the awards that we fund, we have an internal remit and eligibility check process. And this is just to make sure that projects are in remit and teams are eligible or applicants are eligible. If they make it through that process, then we have multiple shortlisting advisory groups for each of those areas. And it's important to stress that these are specialist advisory groups. And the QR code here will give you a list of who's on each of those committees. So that's quite an important check I would recommend looking at before you apply. If projects then make it through that shortlisting stage, then they get sent for external written review, and any of the applicants who are reviewed will get access to that in preparation for the interviews. And we subdivide the interviews again by career stage, although these are less specialist than the shortlisting advisory groups. But each of these panels have 4 arms, so 3 science arms, 1 humanities and social science arms. So slightly less specialist than the advisory groups, but still a specialist panel. They will then make recommendations for us, and then we will decide which projects to fund on that basis. But again, I would really stress having a look at who's on the membership of those advisory committees. So if I could have the next slide, thanks. So what makes for a compelling application? What are we looking for? Well, we divide this into the research proposal itself, the applicant or the applicants, and then the research environment. And we split that up 50%, 25%, and 25%. I could take the next slide, thanks. So with the proposal itself, what we're looking for is projects that we describe as bold, creative, and high quality. And that can sound abstract, but those terms all have specific meanings. So when we talk about bold, we're looking for projects that are not just incremental or filling a gap in the literature, but are generating significant shifts in understanding in a particular field, or that have the potential to generate new or innovative research to stimulate the development of a field. When we talk about projects being creative, we're talking about developing testing new concepts, methods, or technologies, or bringing them together in creative ways that have not been done before, which is an important part of that process. And when we're talking about high quality, we primarily mean the design. So is the project feasible? Is it likely to achieve the results that you are hoping for? And again, we have a QR code here for some guidance on how to fill out that process. So I'll just move on now to the applicant. And here we're primarily talking about the experience of the applicant or team, and do they have the track record in the background to be able to successfully lead a project of this scale. We do focus on research outputs and contributions as well, but one of the things that we really emphasize here is the focus on career development. So how is this going to develop you in your career, but also how are you going to develop or support the careers of those who are working on the project with you? And if this is a team-based project, we also look for rationale for how or why the team is involved, and just understanding that that team has been constructed in an equitable way and everyone has a key role or a substantial role in the decision-making process. So I'll just move on then to the research environment. So the research environment is a relatively new area for us, and it's an area that I think some applicants find a little bit challenging to articulate. But effectively, what we're talking about here is split between what does the research environment bring for you, and what do you bring to the research environment? So in terms of the first, that's really about, is the environment you're doing the project in the right fit intellectually, and are they going to support you and your project and give you the resources that you need to be able to fulfill the project? But equally, it's about what you bring to the research environment. So how are you going to make sure that the team that you're working with, whether that's co-applicants or postdocs or others, are supported and developed in their career as they progress through the award? So it's very important that the applicants are creating or contributing to a better research culture where everyone on those teams can thrive and be successful in those projects. And we take account of the fact that this will depend greatly on the context, But it's that personal element is a very important part of this. This is not simply about whether or not this is a world-leading institution. This is really as much about what you bring to contribute to a better research environment and a better research culture. And we do place 25% of the emphasis on this. So it is worth emphasizing that in the application. So if I could have the next slide, thanks. And one of the other things that we've been looking at more recently, and Viv referred to this a little bit earlier, is an increased focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion. And this is something that we've been working on, particularly since the end of last year. We have updated our equity, diversity, and inclusion policy, which is linked here. But essentially, we are asking three quite simple questions of researchers in the application. So first of all, who is doing the research? And is that representative of the context in which the research is being done? And that's particularly important for research that's being conducted in low and middle income countries. We want to make sure that if the research is being conducted there, that the team is composed of researchers from that location, which is very, very important. The second element is how is that research done? So we want to make sure that if there are a team of researchers and if those researchers are working with communities or other patient groups, that everyone has a meaningful say in that process, and that includes in the leadership and the development of the application as much as anything else. And then finally, who benefits from this? We want to make sure that any researchers who are involved in this project or any other wider stakeholders, like community groups, patient groups, are all benefiting from this. And this might be through career development opportunities, it might be through sharing of outputs and so on. And these are elements that we look at across the application. We want to make sure that equity, diversity, and inclusion becomes embedded in the way that applicants think about the development of their projects. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Viv, who's going to take you through some tips for how to develop these applications.
Yes, so there's always this thing about tips of what should we do, how should we approach this? And I think the most important thing that I've always said and thought was important when it comes to applying, whether it's to Wellcome to any funder, is try and get as much information you can from the funder that you're interested in applying for funds. So in that case, you've already started doing this. You're at our webinar. You're going to go have a look at the QR codes. We'll share the slides later. But you really need to check what it is that we can fund. So get a really good idea of what it is we're focusing on. And I think we've gone through our slides. Hopefully we've described discovery research to you. We know that this is sometimes challenging. So have a good look at your work and see if it fits in. Also, what's really important is, are you eligible? Are you at the right career stage? And which of the different awards would be most fit you at your career stage? Now, if you have any questions, please do reach out to us. I'll share those details at the end of this, because sometimes, especially in regions that are not based in the UK, it's different and there are regional variations. So if you have any concerns, do contact us and we can confirm whether or not you're eligible. But first, go and have a look at our website. The website is dense. There's huge amounts of drop-down menus, but please do have a look at them and have a great, solid look through, because most of the answers are actually there. Then when it comes to your actual idea, please also make sure that you develop that idea with colleagues. Don't just do this on your own. This is something where you can really benefit from discussions, finding out what other people are doing, see how you could potentially collaborate or synergize with other people. So that's really helpful. Also consider your audience. So in the earlier slide, we showed you that there are various people who are going to be reading your application during the entire process. There's going to be a committee of people that are going to initially shortlist you. That committee, have a look, how is it set up? What do they ask? Then when it comes to the interview stage, have a look at that again. What are they looking at? And have a look at how we've just described how we have 50% is for your scientific idea, and then 25 based on your team or yourself, as well as your research environment. So really consider all of these things. Then when it comes to the application stage, I think I've said a lot of these things, but hopefully this is just reiterating things like it's really important to consider your research environment, consider your collaborators or your mentors. If you're going to go for an early career or career development award, you will have a mentor as well as a sponsor. These are people that you would want to continue to work with over the period of your entire award, who will be able to help you and you'd want them to be able to engage with you. So make sure you choose that properly. Also, give yourself time. Our career development and early career rewards, they run 3 times a year. So which means that if you don't make this deadline, there'll be another deadline in 4 months' time. Really rather have your application ready and in the right form, and then send it through as opposed to rushing it in. Our Discovery Awards, they will be running 2 times a year from 2027 onwards. So there'll be a slight shift in that, but yeah, that's coming through. Then, if you do get invited to interview, congratulations, you are part of an elite group of people. You clearly have done incredible work, but really do go back to the website and go back to the email that we send you and go back to the information that explains what it is we're looking for at interview stage. Also, make sure you practice with your peers and prepare. Consider your whole application and realize that when it comes to your interview, you will be questioned on your whole application. So you will be questioned on whether or not you're going to be training yourself or whether you're training your students just as much as how much you're going to be working on a specific gene or whatever the project is. Consider the science as well as the other parts of things. And then also just realize that our panels are there not to berate or test you in a negative way. We really just want to support you and support science in the best sense. So hopefully, I know these interviews are always very nerve-wracking, but when it comes from our perspective is we all want to support, and this is a room of researchers that all just want great science. So the questions are all in good and good humor, and we're just interested in research. And then this is the one slide that's not always the nicest one to discuss, but unfortunately, most people are not successful. We do have a number that are, however, there is a chance that if you do apply, you aren't successful. Now, if this happens, if you have reached shortlisting stage, so you've definitely been eligible and you've definitely been within scope of what we fund, you will receive a letter that has a bit of detail with rationale of why you did not make it through to the interview stage. Similarly, if you go get to interview and you will also get a letter that describes why potentially what the discussion was around your application. It meant that you weren't successful. Please take that into consideration, though people have thought about that. You do have an opportunity to apply twice with us. So if you take that feedback and you can really improve your application, you might be successful in the second round. But I'd also like to highlight that on a few instances, we don't offer this for everyone, but sometimes we offer an interview, especially for people who come from regions or from backgrounds that we think are that could really benefit from a conversation. So especially potentially from low middle income countries, we do offer that support occasionally. If you get an offer in your letter that says you can speak to one of us, please do make contact with us, because that's not something we offer everyone. It's generally an indicator that we think that you've got potential that we would like to address or help you with. And with that, I am going to show this slide, which is actually possibly the most important slide. It's got all the details on how to contact us. Now, you could also just Google us because we are on wellcome.org. But you can also have a look at our funding support email, and you can ask us questions through there. You can also sign up to our newsletter. This newsletter is quite useful in a sense that if you're also interested in things like that are more solutions focused, so if you want to do a lot of solutions based work, they'll update you on calls there. You can also just regularly visit our website and see what the calls and what's open at the time. And then if you have any specific discovery research feedback that you'd like to send through, there's a discovery research email there as well. And I'd also like to highlight that there's a lot of information online, including a lot of webinars that go into detail of the different career awards. So there are hours of presentation. I think, Peter, you're in a number of them. I think other colleagues are in some of the others. But if you want to go through, and if you'd like to watch another webinar, I think there are about year or two old, maybe 3 years old, but they're still very valid, and the information and the way we assess applications is still the same. So with that, I'm going to stop and hand it over back to Sefer for questions. Maybe hand it over to you guys for questions. And now
All right.
hopefully I'm going to stop sharing in a very professional manner as well.
Okay, thank you so much for the lovely briefing, Viv and Peter. Does anyone have any questions for the speakers at all? Maybe you want to put it in the chat box and I will read them for you guys. Well, maybe I can start with one of the questions that I have. Do you think that the composition of the co-applicants or collaborators important?
Peter, do you want me to take it?
Sure.
Sure. Pretty much, yes. Exceptionally important in a sense that if you create a team that's going to do the research, we want to be able to make sure that the research is that you're all complementary to each other. That if and now if you're thinking of a team, you're thinking about the Discovery Award. We also really look at whether or not those applications and those collaborations are equitable and fair. So we don't really want to support tokenistic applications where it looks like someone from a high-income country has just decided to team up from someone elsewhere in the world. That's not what we want to support. And we really do support research that benefits everyone and that ultimately will benefit the science most and the people that will benefit from the science most. So what we want to do is make sure that those teams are real teams, that the research is done in an equitable way, so done in a way that benefits everyone, that there isn't some kind of helicopter science where people come in, take samples, and then go elsewhere. And we also want to make sure that we're very aware that there's incredible talents outside of a lot of the high-income countries, and we want to make sure that those capabilities are properly developed and taken into consideration. Peter, do you want to jump in? I feel like I got a bit waffly there. You might have a nice answer.
Yeah, I think the Discovery Awards are awards that I work on directly, and I think there's a couple of areas where this is really important. One is this is a golden opportunity to widen the scope of the disciplines involved. So if you've got multiple co-applicants, they can represent a whole very wide range of disciplines that can open up a question that may not be answerable within one discipline. That's really important. I think the second is the opportunity to scale an idea geographically. So this is a potential to take a project maybe across one field, but you can look at the same issue across different geographies and do some comparative work, which is really important. And I think then the third is the opportunity to work across career stages. So I mentioned that the Discovery Awards are for established researchers and teams, but that's mainly in terms of the principal investigator. Those who are co-applicants can be at multiple career stages. You might have someone who's maybe mid-career or relatively late in an early career, and they could still be potentially co-applicants and gain really valuable experience by working with that wider team. So there's lots of scope to diversify through disciplines, geography, and through career stages, and it's a really golden opportunity to take a problem, scale it, and really think about this whatever you're working on in a really ambitious way.
All right. Okay, so we have some questions in the chat box from Dr. Nuralatika. Does Wellcome also fund for research that solve a problem in medical device or appliances? Like maybe with the battery of the AED or
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I think that would be sitting in the concept of tools and technology development. So this is one of those areas that we really do want to support tools, technology, methodologies that are in service of discovery. So we aren't trying to find a solution. What we're trying to do is we want to support discovery as a whole. So a lot of diagnostics is very specific, and what they're trying to do is solve a solution. So that's more in the solutions team. However, if you're designing something that might be applicable to multiple areas, for example, you're developing a technology that allows for imaging or that could be applied to multiple kinds of research, then we would be supportive of that. It depends on how specific the application that you're planning on doing. And it tends to be something that really needs to service broad discovery and not a specific technology or specific disease. Peter, jump in if you want to add anything or if you're happy with me.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. I think some projects are centrally focused on tool and tech development. Some of them will have it more peripherally, but in both cases, it needs to be in the service of discovery research, not to provide a practical solution. But that's, again, as Viv has said, specific to our team in discovery research. But it is quite common.
So let's see if the discovery leads to a long life battery for medical devices, then it would be okay for us to apply for that.
I think there's two ways around. I think in what we primarily are talking about here is that the tool itself is leading to the discovery rather than the
Mm-hmm.
discovery to the tool.
Mm-hmm.
But in both cases, the centerpiece needs to be the discovery.
All right, okay. Another question that we have in the chat box, is there any specific theme that will be given priority for Southeast Asia region?
No, I think as long as it fits within our broader scope of what we fund, if you are researching, as long as it's related to human health or discovery based within human health, and you can validate that and say that that has to be the thing, then that's fine. We presume that your regional priorities obviously are important to you, and they'll be important to us for that reason. That's it. There is, as long as it fits within our remit, you could be applying for anything.
Yeah, and that's both the beauty and also the challenge of discovery research is that it's entirely open-ended. One thing I would add is that there's no requirement to make this work universally applicable. So, for example, you might develop a piece of research that is focused on local needs or local requirements, and that's as long as that's an ambitious project, that is perfectly viable. But we don't place any priority on any particular subject area or any particular focus.
Okay, so another question is, hi, can we verify that this funding is free from tobacco-affiliated industry? Is there a policy on that?
Yes, there is. We don't fund in any tobacco, and we have not invested in tobacco either. I'm happy to say I can say that easily and without any worry. It's like,
And it says wonderful.
yes.
Okay, so I have another questions. If there is a discrepancy in the information that is given in the form and the guidelines, which one should we refer to? Because I did encounter this before. There is a discrepancy in the information between the ones in the form and the ones in the guidelines. So which one should we prioritize, the information in the guideline or the form?
I would have to actually I would send an email to our funding support team because those are the kinds of things that need to be picked up and addressed
Mhm.
on both those forms.
All right.
So I would say if you've identified that, please do contact us as soon as possible,
Mhm.
highlight it and clarify there. I can't state without hearing what it is, and also that's just one of those details that I'm not in the nitty-gritty on it. But please contact us or our funding support team. They're the right people to answer that. And if you are unable to get down to that, I'm actually very sure someone can help you there.
Okay, all right, thank you. For you guys, you can maybe tell us a little bit about your project that maybe you want to try to get the Welcome Fund. You can share with us what's your idea, what's your thoughts, and then maybe you can have some of the feedbacks from Viv and Peter. Right. So another question that I have, since we cannot actually have the money to go into China, right? But can we actually do site visits in China, or maybe we want to buy machines from China? Is that allowed?
Yes, I think you can definitely buy machines from China. I'm not
Mm,
100% sure on the site visits. I think that would be something we'd have to confirm via email with that funding support team, just
mhm,
because of the logistics on that. I can clarify why it is that we can't fund into China. And that has to do with political reasons, in the sense that China will only allow us to fund into Chinese institutions if we have offices in China, and
mm,
we don't have any offices in China. So that's one of those situations where our office based in London, we do have one office in Berlin for some other reasons. It's a small office, but we aren't looking to expand externally. So at the moment, because of rules in China, we are unable to fund in China. But we don't have anything against Chinese researchers. Chinese research is excellent.
mhm.
And some of their products and machinery is that if that's what you need to do your research, then you can definitely use your funds to support to purchase those. When it comes to the site visits, please do check the actual details, and we'd have to ask funding support to clarify that.
Nice.
Peter, is there anything you wanted to add there? Did I miss anything?
No, that's good.
Cool.
All right. Another questions that we have in the chat box. Can you reconfirm that we don't need to have colleagues from the UK to apply or be the PI, principal investigator for us to apply?
You do not need to have, if you are coming from a low middle income country, according to OEC. So there's a list on our website if you want to confirm. If you're so the economics like the list, you do not have to be a lead. You can be a lead from the UK, from the Republic of Ireland, or any low middle income country. That said, if you want to collaborate with someone from a high income country, you're welcome to do that. What I would say is if you are going to do so, then you need to really consider the team dynamics, as we mentioned earlier on. Make sure that this is a good, equitable relationship. Yeah, you can lead from Malaysia.
All right, but if we do have some colleagues from the UK, will the chance be higher to get the fund?
No.
To be honest, that's not something you can say.
Mhm,
No, I think what gets funded is a good idea and a good
mhm,
team. So
mhm,
if that makes your application stronger because you have insight that that researcher has, then yes. But you could equally get just as strong a team of having someone else from another low-income country that has potentially even more insight in that into that whatever you're working on. So I wouldn't say it has to be if you're building a team, it needs to be the strongest team, and it doesn't really matter where they're from.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the expertise requirements, not the geography.
Yeah.
mhm. All right. Another questions that we have, if the PI were having years of industry experience and newly joined academic research, which award shall she applies for?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I think that's quite nuanced. We probably have to look at your CV in a little bit more detail. My immediate instinct is it would depend on where in the academic framework you're sitting. You might be a career development award, you might be a discovery award. I think you'd have to, that's quite an individual specific response. It depends on what you were doing in academia. It depends on what you're doing in what you were doing in industry and what you're doing in academia. That said, we do support people who have transitioned in career. We take your career into perspective. So in our application form, there's an area where you can describe your impact. And we are very aware that when you're in industry, your publications might vary and the impact that you've created might alter. So we give you space to describe what kind of impact you did in industry and how that's relevant to the project that you are applying for. So as long as you explain that in a clear way and just highlight your strengths well, in fact, it might actually be beneficial. I don't know. It all depends on your application, but we have nothing against that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. We really welcome a breadth of experience, and it's one of the reasons we've shifted from a more traditional CV approach to what we call a narrative CV approach to give people a chance to tell their story effectively in the way that Viv has explained. And that might mean a whole range of skills that have been developed in industry that would be relevant for projects. That's absolutely no problem. And actually, as Viv says, may be beneficial. It is something that you can contact the funding support team about, so they will look at eligibility and you can give your specifics and they can advise you further on what what scheme would be most appropriate.
I really would recommend you do upfront before you spend time applying for the wrong award. These awards are not insignificant. We are very aware of how much time they take. And the last thing you want to do is spend too much on the wrong kind of award. You want to find out upfront. So if you have these questions now, please do reach out to us before you start writing the details of the application, just to save yourself time and energy.
And that also holds for the remit, so not just the eligibility. So that if a project is not in remit, they'll be able to give you a sense of that upfront before you put the work in.
Can I jump in and just talk about the word remit? Because so I'm a native English speaker, but I'm not a native British person, right? So I didn't know what the word remit was until I went quite far in my academic career. And to be honest, I never heard it much until I started working at Wellcome. But remit is a term that people in the funding landscape, and I think a lot of British speakers use to discuss what it is they cover or what's in scope. So what do we fund? So different funders will have different remits, and it's extremely important to know what it is that that funder is supposed to be focusing on. So for example, if you go to a government organization that focus on agriculture, you shouldn't be going with engineering ideas there. That's the same thing with all these global philanthropic organizations like we are. We have specific areas of focus, and that's our remit. And it's really important to really focus on, is this the right idea for that organization? And is it in remit? So sorry, Peter, I just jumped in because I didn't know what remit meant.
Absolutely.
And yet I use it all the time now. Just I thought I'd throw it out there in case other people were going, okay, what's that word,
Yeah, and also
Google?
it could be scope as well, research scope, or just the
Uh,
area of research you're working on is a simpler way to say it.
yeah, we are more common with scope rather than remit.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
great. I just saw the comment there about music, which I just love. It's something I'm going to mention in the meeting. I love that we could be remixing music. I love the layer of science of music. It's great.
Oh, so we have questions. Do you accept a proposal on breast cancer awareness, a survey like that? Mm.
Peter, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the broad area of breast cancer awareness is something we're interested in. The slight reservation would be around the survey element and what the purpose of this is. So if the purpose is just simply to raise awareness, I think then the discovery element of that would be perhaps lower down in the mix. But I think if the focus was on generating new knowledge around breast cancer awareness and how people understand the disease and how communities or patient groups are understanding this and generating knowledge more broadly, that would be entirely within scope. But I think my slight reservation would be if it's focused primarily on the more applied translational side of it, where if the central aim is just to raise awareness, then it probably wouldn't be in scope. It's just the knowledge generation needs to be centered. But on that topic, absolutely fine.
It's one of those shifts to the discovery way of thinking, right? So it's not just the science, it's the science in context and where that's going to lead. Um,
But it does point also to I mentioned earlier about we say life, health, and well-being, and we say that because we're funding across the life sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. And a lot of the social sciences work in this space is looking at the social and cultural context of health and how communities understand disease and illness and how they might work together to improve. And there, as long as there's knowledge generation in those areas, they can be equally relevant here beyond the life sciences. So we're a very, very broad team of researchers and funders.
Okay. Questions that I have. Is it possible to be funded, but the budget will be slashed? I mean, or it just pass or fail? You will not going to revise the budget.
Peter, do you want to answer?
Yes, that is entirely possible. So the way that it works is that so teams of researchers will come in with a proposed budget that will be assessed by the two committees, the shortlisting and interview committees. They'll make a recommendation to us, and then we'll make a decision. But that decision has to be calibrated against what the available funds are. And in some circumstances, we may deem a project either too large on the basis that it's not a coherent project, but several projects joined together, or there may be a recommendation that one part of the research is not as relevant as others. But we also have to look at the overall budget for any particular brand. So we do list on the website averages of sizes. So for the Discovery Awards, we say that the average award is around £3.5 million. And if it's over five, it'll be subject to extra scrutiny. But that's a very wide spectrum. So we fund an incredibly wide spectrum of sizes. But yes, the budget could be suggested to be different depending on what the recommendations are.
I see. Okay. Thank you for the answer, for the explanation. In your presentation, you did talk about supported by evidence. What evidence do you actually look for? Do you need? Is it like coming from the literature review, or do we have to do a preliminary studies?
Peter, was this part, do you remind, I'm trying to remember part of, is this the research part of the application or evidence maybe could you re-ask that question?
In the presentation, you did talk about supported by evidence. So what kind of evidence do you need? Like, can it be the evidence come from the literature review, or do we need to have preliminary study?
Okay, so prelim. So I was trying to figure out in context of what. So if you're talking about evidence in context of like the research proposal,
Mm-hmm.
obviously we would like to see evidence that there's a strong probability that what you're aiming to look at
Mm-hmm.
is real and is interesting. So that could be a combination of evidence previously published by you or by others. It could also be preliminary data that if you're in a fortunate position that you could bring. It could also be, I kind of think those are the two kinds of ways of showing it, right? Is either, or you could have evidence that this hasn't been done before, but because of all these other bits of experience that you and your team have, you are the only people in the world who could do that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's ways of building up that evidence. We do we align with Dora, so we don't think that publications need to be obvious. Like we don't look at the names or the impact factor of applications. We really look at how the research that's been done has impacted people, and we really look at how you describe your research in your application form and how that informs you. So the way you write that could also be an evidence to support why you'll be able to do that research. I would also say, I think if this is just in context of science, that's how I would say validated by, I can't remember the right word now. Peter, jump in if you think
Yeah, and
you can say it
there is a
very
specific
eloquently, I'm
section.
quite sure.
There's a specific section of the form that looks at what research has led up to this point, and that's the section that would cover the areas that Viv is talking about in terms of might be preliminary data, it might be prior work that has gone that has developed up to this point, or it could be the literature review. So it does depend very much on the context. What I would say a broader point though as well is that it's not just about the research proposal, but the way I would visualize this is more about just giving examples. So, for example, let's say you're in the research environment section and you're talking about how you support the team and how you want to make sure they develop career options. Rather than just simply saying, I support the team, you could support it by evidence by saying, this is what I've done previously to do that, and this is what I would do in the future to develop their career opportunities. So it's evidence in the sense that you're giving specific examples rather than making broad aspirational claims. And that's really helpful, I think, with an application that the detail helps us to think, okay, we've got something to work with. We've got some specifics there. So it does apply more generally, but I think you're talking more about the specific research proposal section.
All right. Okay. So we have a questions from a researcher. Can research on the development of herbal medicine be considered? We are interested in exploring herbal therapies for the treatment of metabolic syndrome.
my immediate thought there is that sounds very interesting, and depending on how you expand it and how bold it is, I have seen no reason why that wouldn't be in scope. Um, it sounds interesting that as long as it leads to you're discovering how these things are working. So that's great.
Yeah, the focus is on the knowledge generated, not the treatments. I think that's an important point. It's about knowledge generation first and foremost. And this is a good example of an area where there's scope for the life sciences and the social sciences to work together because there's a whole social dimension to herbal medicine that obviously has been researched and it sits in a community and other social contexts. So there are opportunities to look at it at multiple angles depending on what you want, but the centerpiece needs to be the knowledge, not the outcome per se.
Got it. And then another question in the chat box. Can an applicant submit two applications at once?
Oh, well, they're very ambitious. I would say our applications aren't short. I don't think you can. You can apply with the same idea twice. So but you'd have to wait for that idea to either reach funding decision and then you could reapply, or you can, once you've been awarded, hold more than one award if you are a co-applicant. But if you are an early career award or a career development award, you can only apply hold one award. I would say if you've got two great ideas, have a good think, see if you can combine them, because in all likelihood, they're probably relating to each other, and see if there's maybe something really good in between the two of them. Peter, jump in.
Yeah, the other thing is that when we're assessing the applicant or the team, one of the things we're looking at is feasibility. So it is entirely possible, for example, to be a PI on a discovery award and then maybe to be a co-applicant in something else. But we want to make sure that the people have the time capacity to give to each of those projects. And if that becomes less feasible because people are spread too thin, then that might have an impact on how feasibility is understood.
Okay. All right. So another question from me. If the application was not submitted before the deadline, it says to contact Wellcome Fund. So will it have to be through emails or we can actually do it via the website?
If you've missed a deadline, then you're going to have to wait for the next deadline, which will be in 4 months' time.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have any problems with your application form, then you should contact us on the website straight away.
Okay.
I think through the application website, that'd be the way you should do it.
Okay. So another question in the chat box. I am starting training of health professionals as expert on vaping cessation in Malaysia and neighboring countries. Not sure if this fits.
I think it depends on what you're looking at, which comes back to what are you trying to discover when you're looking at these things. Immediately, this does sound like something that is potentially very interesting. It sits in the social sciences. Peter, you might want to jump in and say something just because that's
I think,
you
again, it
know.
depends what the central focus is. If the central focus is on training, then probably not. If the central focus is on looking at vaping cessation as a piece of knowledge generation, then yes. So it's really about what is it you want to do? If you want to discover new knowledge in this area, yes. If you just want to train for the sake of training, then probably not.
All
I think
right.
it's difficult.
Okay. All right. Last but not least, not last, if you guys have any other questions, but can we have the slides after this?
Absolutely, I'll send them through to you
All
probably
right.
later today.
Okay, thank you so much, Viv. Is there any other questions?
Well, if there are, you can always contact us. We will share the
Mm,
slides. Our
yeah.
website is very easy to find, welcome.org. And yeah, good luck with everyone. I hope to see some lovely applications at some point.
Yes. All right. Shall we have a photo session before we end our session today? Can you guys open your camera? All right. So no camera. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Viv and Peter, for this lovely session. The briefing was very insightful. So if we have any questions, we can just go straight away on the website and then ask them through the website. And I would like to thank you all as well for coming to this briefing session. I hope that you guys will try to apply for this, but bear in mind that this is actually not a very short application. It's quite lengthy, so you should start early as possible. And if you miss this deadline, you can always try the next one, the next cycle. So don't be fret. You can always come to us. You can also contact me and Viv and Peter and Wellcome Fund if you have any questions at all. All right. So if there's nothing more, then I would like to say thank you once again for all of you for coming to this session.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and good luck.
Goodbye.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Viv and Peter.